here's the setup. Ceiling to floor, ceiling to floor, ceiling to floor, all the way around. Floor, that's more corner. I don't think I touched that. Okay, roof. Okay, and then everything on here is exactly what's on here. And then that's all. And then the shelf, everything on the shelf else is empty. And then this is just to put mine to stand it up. Okay, let's start. Stay in the water and you'll become a fish. Those are the last words that Maria del Cesar said to her son, Francisco de la Verga. This story is about family and accepting your family. I grew up with Spanish descendants, and so I was very excited to learn about this cryptid and this story and understand why family is so important to the Spanish people and the impact that this story has had. So I'm going to talk about the story, 3 impacts that this story has had, and then 3 main takeaways that I got from this story. So I'm excited to tell you about it. So in 1674, a young man named Francisco de la Verga went swimming with his friends. Now his mother wanted him to come home, so she told him that he was going to turn into a fish if he kept swimming, which of course she didn't mean, but I guess it turned out to be true. He got pulled under by the current while swimming, and he was last seen in the estuary of Bilbao with his friends. But 5 years later, a group of fishermen had pulled in this human-looking fish, and they didn't know what it was. So they tried to catch it, of course, and it was able to get free. So they lured it in with bread and eventually pulled in this thing. Now, they had no idea what it was, so they captured it. And the description of this fish that they caught was that he had red hair, very fair skin, had scales on the front and on the back, and he had gills or guts around his neck and had looked like he had been in the water for a very long time. So they captured this thing, didn't know what it was, and they took it to an exorcist priest in Spain. And while they were trying to get all this information out of him, he didn't say anything until a lot later in the process when he muttered this one word, lierganes. Now, nobody knew what this meant except this one guy who was like, oh, that's pretty close to my hometown. Let's take him there. So they did. And the second that he got to lierganes, he started walking towards Francisco de la Verga's family home, where his mother had instantly recognized him. So she took him in, no questions asked, and just let him be. He exhibited very odd behavior. He didn't speak much, he didn't eat much, and just kind of walked around all the time. And he lived there for 9 years until he went to go be back in the sea. So this story has had such a huge impact on the Spanish culture and the Spanish people in general. You can even see that they built him a statue in lierganes to commemorate this story and this family, and really just kind of show the love that was expressed and passed down through this story. So the biggest takeaway that I understood and got from this story was how his mother just welcomed him back with open arms. She did not ask any questions. She just let her son live. She didn't try to change him or anything. And I think that is so beautiful and such a unique factor that makes this story so special. I really resonated with this because when I went to Spain for the first time, I met so many family members that I never even knew existed, and they welcomed me in with open arms. They were so excited to meet us and talk to us that they just didn't even ask any questions. So it really makes me wonder if this story had any sort of impact on the Spanish culture and how they carry themselves, and really just think about family and understand, family's family, no questions asked, come on home. So I think that it's just such a beautiful thing that this story teaches. So we talked about the familial impact. Now I'm going to talk about more modern cultural impacts that this story could have had First one is the creature of the Black Lagoon. I think that the closest similarity obviously is just how he looks in general. He's got the human stature, but with the scales all over him. And I really just think that the similarity is undoubtable. And then another very similar look is also the crew from Pirates of the Caribbean. They also have scales, gills, things of that such all over them, particularly leaning into they look like they've been in the water for a very long time. So I think that there very much could have been a correlation between the two, maybe some influence. So we just talked about modern influences, and I'm going to talk about 3 takeaways that I personally got from this story. The first one is the power of storytelling. This story has gone on for 300 years, has lasted and been told for so long, and has had such an impact on the Spanish culture and society, and I just think is very, very crazy. Another thing that I really thought was interesting is how they just accepted his difference and no questions asked, just loved him. That was not a very popular or common thing to do back then, so I think it was very beautiful and just amazing that this was something that happened back then, and I think that that also could have had a very large impact on Spanish culture and society for accepting others. The third takeaway that I got from this was learning the line between myth and reality. I think that him, being a person was obviously very true. Him turning into a fish, maybe not so much. But this story really blurs the lines. So I think that's also something that makes it very unique that I learned about when learning this story. One thing that was very, very cool to me was this man named Benito Hermio Viejo. He was known for disproving myths and legends and things like this, but he actually said that this story was true, which gave it so much more credibility and understanding and just made it all that more real to the Spanish people and the society at the time. Now, there was another man centuries later named Gregorio Marañón who said that he didn't turn into a fish, but he possibly could have had this condition where his skin was very dry and it limited his speech and his appetite and his behavior, things of that sort. So this is another kind of way that furthers the story of it just being that much more real. So I just think that this story has had such a big impact on the Spanish culture, on the society, and so we talked about the story of it, the society, the culture, and everything, and just how this story has shaped Spanish history as it is. But I bet if you were his mother, and your last words to him was that he was going to turn into a fish, and he came back 5 years later as a fish, you probably would, and left 9 years later, never see your son again, I think you too would regret telling your son that one little sentence that you thought was completely harmless. So thank you so much. That is all.